TikTok, time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world right now. I'm your friendly neighborhood philosopher, David Wood, and with me now is the Hindu historian.
Hi, everyone. Yeah.
Why do you call yourself the Hindu historian? And go ahead and introduce yourself by, I don't want to give any names out unless you introduce them first. So,
Oh,
uh,
that's fine. Yeah. Um, so yes, I call myself Hindu historian because, well, I became interested in a lot of the content covered by channels like yourself and Apostate Prophet, like disproving and refuting Islam, exposing what it really teaches and how dangerous it is. And one thing I noticed is that your content and AP's content is all about like the Western world, the Christian world, and a lot of it is like, oh well, I guess a lot of the concern is like what will happen if this ideology is allowed to spread into our countries. Well, you have a case study if you look at the history of India from pretty much 700 AD all the way to the present day. That's what's going to happen, and there are so many topics in Indian history with regard to that, like the exodus of the Romani, the Sikh Guru, the founding of Sikhism, the partition of India, the situation in Kashmir. You could write like that. You could do full documentaries about, and in the West. When I made my account, I thought I would make videos about that, but I was never satisfied with the stuff I produced. I thought it was too boring or too and I sort of lost steam for that, but I stayed part of the community on your channels and sort of became the resident Hindu, I guess. Here we are.
yeah, and it is interesting because the the sort of view of lots of people here in the West is that disputes with Muslims over the centuries, wars and so on, they're just the result of Western imperialism, right?
Oh,
The West, you can actually watch. I've watched videos that are made to educate school children on history and so on, and it's
mhm.
basically Muslims were living peacefully in the Middle East, minding their own business when Christians launched the Crusades, right? And the idea is that that's when Muslims in order to defend themselves had to start fighting against the European invaders. When if you look at history, Muslims swept across northern Africa. They went up into Spain and were fighting in France, and they're attacking in Eastern Europe as well. And in order in order to in order to stop that, they said, "Look, we need to take a fight to their territory, and not just have us being constantly on the offensive." So it's what people are taught, and this goes all the way up through college here. This is what you'll see from the media and so on.
Yep.
What you're taught is the complete reversal. It's not, people in Europe were minding their own business and Muslims came to attack, and then Christians responded. It's Muslims were minding their own business, Christians came and attacked them, and that forced Muslims to defend themselves. So we have that, but it was really built into the thinking of lots of people that the only reason that you have terrorists and terrorist attacks and so on is because of Western aggression. And the problem with that is, have you guys ever heard of the entire rest of the world? Right? Have
Yep.
you have you seen Africa? Have you seen India? Have you seen any of these places and what has gone there? Because you still have the terrorist attacks, right? I mean,
Yep.
you have endless terrorist attacks going on in places like Nigeria. You have nonstop terrorist attacks in India, and so it doesn't matter where you go. Islam just tends to produce these kinds of violent reactions, and so it can't simply be a matter of Western imperialism that causes all this stuff. It must be something that is somehow built into the fabric of Islam. So, but
Yes.
I was going to say, but before we actually, go specifically into this topic, if you wanted to talk, for people who have no familiarity with Islam's interactions with India and so on,
Uh,
what's it been like?
Well, I mean, just terrible, terrible, start to finish. It all started with Muhammad's hadith saying that the group that conquers India will be something like they would be guaranteed paradise, and also regulars on your channel are well aware of how religious minorities like Christians are treated in the Middle East, and so you can imagine how much worse that persecution is when the conquered subjects were not people of the book. And not only that, that I would say Hindu theology is it's the exact opposite of Islamic theology with Tawheed. Like there's this one God that's separate from creation, and he has no partners and no equals. Whereas with Hinduism, God is immanent and like believed to be within the everything that exists, every living thing, and every soul is believed to be a part of God. So yeah, so you can imagine just how if your religion teaches you to hate people who believe different things, how much are you going to hate people who believe something that's the exact opposite of what you believe, right?
Yeah, so in other words, Muslims would view you more along the lines of the pagans of Mecca rather than along the same lines as Jews and Christians. And so Muslims with the polytheists of Mecca, it was smash all their idols, take
Yeah.
over their shrine, and tell everyone you have to convert or you die. And that was the message then. Whereas Christians were allowed to still be Christians and Jews were allowed to still be Jews if they accepted their dhimmi status. But people who weren't people of the book, they had to just be crushed and forcibly converted.
Yes, and even with that people of the book protection, it wasn't a paradise like
No, no, it's horrible.
anywhere. No, like I mean, they tried to say Andalus was, but that's another thing I've noticed is that they always pick the most obscure things to make their points. Like they know that it'll take a lot of research, or like you need a subscription to JSTOR to look up this article and find out. You know,
Yeah.
um, yeah, they aim for things that are not common knowledge, just so it's hard to disprove. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've noticed that too over the years. They always modify their argument to bring it to an area of ignorance, right? They always retreat to an area where there's ignorance about a topic. So at first, when people didn't have the Muslim sources, it's, oh, Muhammad, Muhammad's teachings are so peaceful and tolerant and loving and kind and generous and blah blah blah. And until people start reading them, then they change it, and then it becomes the Andalus, and then people start studying that. It's the same thing with like the preservation of the Quran. The Quran's been perfectly preserved right down to the letter, not a variant anywhere. They said that as long as no one was looking at the manuscripts, until people finally start going and looking at the manuscripts, and now it's, oh, but there are these different kirat, and it was revealed in all these ways, and now we're starting to expose that nonsense, and then it's going to be something else, and it's constantly shifting what their position is to bring it to bring their position into an area where people are ignorant about, until people actually go and do their research, and then they change their argument once again. All right, now people are wondering why we would be discussing this topic, guys. I recently released a video on Hagia Sophia. That would be the original Greek pronunciation. In Turkish now, I think it's Hagia Sophia. And so this was a Christian cathedral, the biggest cathedral in the world. And Muslims conquered the area and converted it into a mosque. Then in the 20th century, the Turkish government, which was secular at that time, converted it into a museum so there wouldn't be any disputes between Christians and Muslims. And now, just recently, it has been turned back into a mosque. So I made a short video about that, and I got multiple requests. David, could you talk about the Babri Masjid in India? Now, I've seen a little bit of dispute over this, but haven't really studied it in depth, and so that's why I brought Hindu historian on here. So why don't you go ahead and give us the background of the dispute, and I'll go ahead and put a picture up here for a second to show people what we're talking about.
Okay. Sure. Would I see it on the video or?
You should, yeah. I'll just have it up for maybe a minute or so, just so people can see the mosques. Now, just to be clear, this mosque is no longer there, correct?
That's right. It was demolished by a riot in the 1992. Yes, by a group uh, of Hindus who were retaliating for a train that was set on fire by Muslim attackers.
Hey, that's not tolerant.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you guys? Just
Well, what are you referring to the live chat or?
no, no, no. I'm talking. I'm messing around saying what people are going to say. That hey, that's not tolerant.
Well, oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're saying that this was that in retaliation for some Hindus being killed, you said on a train that they went and
Yeah.
destroyed this mosque.
Well, yes. So it was an act of vigilantism. So it was organized. It was a rally. There was a rally that was organized by the BJP and the VHP at the time, and it got out of hand. The sentiment was just, like these guys, they're setting us on fire in our own country. What are we going to do about it? And there's this mosque that was built over our huge temple. Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to tear it down. So I'm
And
not
so
saying I,
and so
yeah.
this wasn't. Just to be clear, this wasn't. Hey, you did something to us, so we're going to go do something random to you. This had already been a sensitive spot that was regarded as Muslims building over a Hindu structure, and so
Yes.
it was more like we've always been angry about this, but now we're gonna go do something about it because we're particularly upset at this time.
Yes, that is correct, and this is attested. Like we have the writings of Jesuit missionaries such as Joseph Tiefenhiller from the 1760s. This was shortly after the East India Company had just won the Battle of Plassey. They had just taken control, so it wasn't like at this time the British were this big government power that the Hindus could appeal to get their way. It was just starting out, and these Jesuit missionaries are writing that the Hindus at that time already believed that Babur had demolished the Hindu temple that was there to build the Babri Masjid.
So you're saying this isn't some modern fabrication, right? Like because anyone could say that. Anyone could say, oh, you're building over there. We actually had something before that was on that piece of property, so it's actually ours. You're saying that this is acknowledged even before the modern period.
Yes, that is correct.
All right, now why? So, as far as I can tell, Muslims have a mosque. Why don't you go ahead and tell people the location, but also tell people why it's of particular interest to Hindus.
Oh yes. So the Babur did build the Babri Masjid over the remains of a Hindu temple, and this temple is believed to be significant to Hindus because they believe it's the birthplace of Lord Rama, who is one of the 10 avatars of Vishnu, and he is widely regarded as one of the greatest Hindu gods of all time. He's one of the favorites of many practicing Hindus, and
What
he is.
was Rama? That was that was the question in Slumdog Millionaire, right? Did you
Yes,
see Slumdog
yes,
Millionaire? Okay,
yes, I did. In depictions of Lord Rama, what is he seen holding in
yeah,
his hand? Something like that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So guys, if you remember, man, that was I got tricked into watching that. I don't know if you remember the commercials, but the commercials made it look like it was this story about some poor guy who becomes a millionaire. And in the commercials they had like the line dancing and stuff, whereas in the movie it was just the line dancing was like at the end. The cast was doing it to celebrate their completion and stuff. It wasn't part of the movie, but they made it all like him being showered with confetti for winning all the millions of dollars. And it was like this super happy, joyous movie of, rags to riches type deal. And then Nabil actually convinced me to watch it. And it's like burning kids' eyeballs out to, help them, earn more money, begging and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Really, really depressing stuff. But in one of the scenes in the movie, for those who remember it, he was asked, yeah, as you just said, he was asked, what is the god Rama holding in his hand, and he remembered seeing someone dressed as Rama when he was a kid, and
Yeah.
so yeah,
And they had the full blue body paint too. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that so this mountain is the birthplace of Rama, according to Hinduism.
Yes. And according to archaeology, and there have been archaeological surveys of the site. The latest was in 2003, and they concluded that there is the remnants of a Hindu temple there. For example, like there's a lotus motif. There's that water chute that's ubiquitous in Hindu temples. It's quite obvious. And what the response from the Muslim side is that, oh well, just because there's a demolished temple there, that doesn't mean that the temple was demolished and the mosque was built on top of it. Just like, or it wasn't that the temple was demolished to build the mosque. It could have been that the temple was already in ruins. The mosque was built there, but we have we have testimony from independent English and Jesuit missionaries from the time, and also uh, that attest that Hindus believe this was the birthplace of Rama, and also oh, sorry, and, and also given we have access to Babur's memoirs as well, so there were Mughal emperors, to be fair, who were not that bad, like Akbar. But the thing is, the ones that weren't that bad are the ones who didn't take Islam as seriously.
Mm-hmm.
We have access to Babur's memoirs, and whenever he refers to the locals in India, it's never as like locals or the natives or even subjects. It's always kafir or pagan. So you can tell he had that sentiment of, oh, the kafirs, and also a temple of that importance would not be left to be in ruins. Hindus, even back then, regularly renovated their temples. And something of this importance, like the birthplace of Lord Rama, they're not going to let that just sit and decay. So that's such a weak defense, if you ask me.
So this was yeah, and I mean, really, if you just look at the pattern of Islam, the pattern that Islam has followed since the very beginning, it's
Mhm.
always, oh, what's your main place of worship? We're taking that and making it ours. So that's what they did in Mecca. Then in Jerusalem, what's your main place of worship? Oh, the Temple Mount. Oh, that has to be ours. During the time of Islamic expansion, what is the main Christian place of worship? Oh, it's Hagia Sophia in Constantinople. Oh, we're gonna keep attacking and keep attacking and keep attacking until we
Yeah.
make that ours and put a mosque there. So that's the pattern we've seen in the Middle East and in the West. So I would just assume that continues on into India, where if they go into an area, I'm assuming it would be, hey, what is the most special place in this area? Oh, it's on that hill over there. Oh yeah, well yeah, that's our new mosque site right there, and so
Yep.
fits the pattern.
Yep. Whatever hurts the most. That's right.
All right, so historically, then there was a Hindu temple there. Muslims claim that it had fallen in, maybe it had just fallen apart and wasn't being taken care of, and that so no harm, no foul. And Hindus claim no, it was a temple there. Muslims demolished it and leveled it. You're pointing out that it wouldn't make sense
Yes.
for Hindus to let a place fall apart like that. But whatever the case may be, it was a mosque for several centuries
Yeah.
until it was leveled in the 90s.
That's correct. Yeah. And what you saw actually in Slumdog Millionaire with that mob attack on uh, it was that's what you were seeing, that mob violence.
Oh, wait a minute. Is that why? Is that why? Is that why people were dressed as Rama? Because
Yeah.
that's what the oh okay no that makes sense. I did not yeah I know now see guys now it all fits together. So in Slumdog Millionaire, the it was it was a Muslim family, and the Muslim area was attacked by Hindus, and two little Muslim kids run away, and they see someone dressed as Rama, and this is how he knows. This is how he's able to answer his questions. So the idea of the movie is he keeps getting all of these questions, but he's able to answer them from some tragic event in his life that helped him to know about this. So you're pointing out that's actually sort of historical fiction, and that it's the story's fiction, but it's actually based on that's the event. And okay, and so that's why there was someone dressed as Rama. All right, now see, now I'm learning
Yeah.
something about film right now.
Yeah. And now I actually do have a quote from the Tribune India about that specific defense we were talking about earlier, which is to say, okay, the no, if at all material of any erstwhile temple was used, it was perhaps because it had already crumbled. Her submission was contested by Justice Bobde, who said, "It's highly unlikely that a temple of this importance would be abandoned or allowed to crumble. It must have been demolished. There is and has always been a concept of renovation of temples in Hinduism." So there you have it. Yep.
So basically, Hindus would have done their upkeep, making sure this place stays up to code, and so looks like it was demolished. And if Muslims hadn't had a pattern back then of demolishing people's stuff and taking people's stuff and turning it into mosques, then maybe we'd say no, that's totally out of character, but it's perfectly in character for them to do this. All right, well, um, so in the 90s, it was still a mosque, but it was destroyed. So we would assume that Muslims would just rebuild the mosque, and then they would go on with it being a mosque, but that didn't happen. So why don't you tell us what happened?
Okay. Yeah. This has been something that's been brought up to the Supreme Court of India since independence almost. It's been this site, whether it should be a Hindu temple or whether the mosque is allowed to stay there. And when it was demolished in 1992, that's when it got serious. Then the BGP came in power, and I don't know if you guys understand this about India, but like in the West, white Christians are considered the privileged in group, and in India, it's the Hindu. So anything to do anything that favors Hindus instead of a minority is considered bad or oppressive.
Huh.
Yeah, yeah, that's that's how it is. So
Oh,
when the
so hang on. So just to be clear, because this is new stuff. So basically, when I mean Hindus in India going and destroying a mosque would be similar to like a bunch of white people in the United States going and destroying someone's mosque or something like that. It would be perceived as
yeah, but I would say in our case that sentiment is a little more justified, I guess. But not saying that it's okay to demolish people's places of worship or
yeah. But
anything.
You're saying you've actually been invaded. We haven't, right? We
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right. Yeah, and then yeah, that's right. With the BJP in power, it's sort of there's another thing. It could have been resolved in the 90s, I think, because there was, or yeah. Hang on one moment. Yeah, it was in 2003. That's when the archaeological survey was done, and it was actually headed by a guy named K.K. Mohammed, who was a practicing Muslim, and he concluded that actually, out of the 131 archaeologists on the site, 55 were Muslims, and that's an overrepresentation. That's 40%, given the population, the Muslim population at the time. That's quite a bit disproportionate, and they found evidence of the lotus motif, of evidence of so many things that make it clear that this is a native Indian structure and it's not Islamic.
So
Yeah.
so so at first, basically, so hint, you know, a Hindu mob in the 90s destroys a Muslim mosque. At that point, it's disputed by Muslims whether this mosque was actually built upon any previously Hindu structure. And so the the view of Muslims is they're just making this up in order to attack our mosque. They've made up this complaint about our mosque. There was no, we just built a mosque on a hill, minding our own business because we're Muslims. And then these Hindus start saying, oh no, they built over our temple. So that's in the 90s, and then so you're saying in the early 2000s they did an archaeological dig to see if there was actually a Hindu structure there before that this mosque was built over. And you're saying around 40% of the team were Muslims, and that the team concluded that no, indeed, there was a Hindu site under the mosque, and the mosque was built over that.
That's correct. That's correct. So then the defense was, oh, but just because there's the remains of a demolished temple there, that doesn't mean that the temple was demolished to make way for the mosque, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's Occam's razor almost when you think of like it's Islam.
Yeah, I mean, notice, guys, you could say this about anything, right? Someone could go and destroy someone's place of worship right now, build over top of it, and then when someone complains, you say, "No, it was hard. It was already destroyed when I got here."
Yeah.
Classic defense. It was like that when I got here. So hey, we discovered that there was a destroyed Hindu place underneath this mosque. It was like that when we got here. So we just decided to build over top of it.
Yeah, I learned not to. That doesn't work when I was 4 years old, but I guess different standards.
Who broke my table? It was like that already. All right. So and what's happened since then? So you could say, okay, there was something there earlier, but that was so long ago. You can't. There's no claim to that now. So we'll just let the Muslims rebuild the mosque. All kinds of directions you could go with this. But what actually happened?
Well, I mean, given all the evidence, I mean, there was someone in the chat earlier today who was saying, oh, but the verdict doesn't actually say that there's proof that the temple was demolished to make way for the mosque. But I mean, okay, there's also no proof that any of the churches that covered the Middle East and North Africa, that there aren't any traces of anymore, used to exist, right? There are things like you can't prove it is not a defense for something when you look at the picture, it's quite obvious what happened. I don't know how it's possible to see it any other way, really.
Yeah, and I'll say again, if we didn't know that the pattern during that time of the conquering armies, the conquering Muslim armies, if we didn't know that the pattern was to go into an area and say, hey, what's your most significant religious site, and then to build on top of that, to tear it down and build on top of that, or to just take it over and convert it. If we didn't know that was the pattern, then I think in that case, we could say, in other words, if this was not characteristic of the Muslim armies of that time to do this, then we could say, come on, we're not sure either way, and so we'll give them the benefit of the doubt and assume that the place was already destroyed. But when we actually know that this is the MO, this is how they rolled, then you say, okay, if we don't actually know whether it was destroyed to put the mosque there or it had just fallen apart separately from that, then yeah. When in doubt, go with what you know about people, and that's what we know about the people. That's what we know about the people of the time.
Oh yeah, and to be fair, if there are certain Mughal emperors like Akbar and even certain practicing Muslim ones who I would have thought, if it was under their rule, then I might have taken the claim that it wasn't actually demolished to make way for the mosque a little more seriously. But we have access to the memoirs of Babur and to what his contemporary said, and the one thing that really sticks out to me is that when he refers to the locals of India, does not occur. He does not refer to them as like, well, he always refers to them by religious terms. Like it's always kafir or pagan, and it's never subject or even dhimmi. You know?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that tells you what he thinks about people with different beliefs, for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so they find out that there was a Hindu temple underneath the mosque. The mosque had been destroyed, and then so Muslims are saying that's their spot and they get to rebuild their mosque, and Hindus are saying no, they destroyed our temple, so we get to build a temple. What this issue ended up before the courts, and it's cool because I think it's cool when it ends up in the courts and people get to present their cases rather than destroying stuff and stuff like that. It's cool. It's cool that it actually ended up as an issue before the court. It's cool that they actually were able to send in a team and investigate and get the actual evidence, so that it's not just people's emotions deciding these issues. But what was the outcome?
Well, so the site of the actual temple was granted to build a new Ram temple for Lord Rama on the site, and another 5 acres of land were given to the Sunni Waqf board to build a mosque elsewhere in Ayodhya, the city. And what's interesting about that is since the general that carried out Babur's orders to demolish the mosque there was actually Shia. Now there's actually disputes from Shia saying that, oh, we actually deserve the mosque here and not the Sunnis, and that goes to show like this is supposed to be a victory for Islam, right? But um, that's how divided up they are among themselves that they can't. That even with that, they're still fighting among themselves. It's funny if you ask me.
So, and now, as far as I can tell, apart from the fact that a mosque was there at one point, apart from that, there is no special significance to that spot, whereas there is a special significance to Hindus. And so you might wonder, man, if they're oh, I'm reading a comment here. He said, actually, the Waqf board, which is Sunni, agrees now that it was a temple before. Their point is that they own the land. So they're saying, yeah, it was a temple. Of course it was a temple, but we own the land. So the situation now is the court says, okay, there was a temple here before. You guys built a mosque over it. Now the mosque is destroyed. So since it was a temple before, then Hindus can rebuild their temple. But you Muslims have a right to build your mosque. So here's a piece of land where you can build your mosque. And so that's been the court ruling. And
Yeah,
so as far as so I guess that has rebuilding started, or is that still kind of
I
off
am
and
not sure actually. All I know is that once it was granted to the Sunni Waqf board, there was a dispute from a Shia board. That's and I'm not sure what happened with that, other than that there was a dispute.
so the now here's the problem. Here's the problem I see. Um, in the Quran, it's Muslims are commanded to drive them out from whence they drove you out, and this is about Mecca, right? It's the Meccans drove you out, and so you have to drive them out from whence they drove you out.
Oh yeah,
But that verse provides the ideological basis for the idea that Muslims can't relinquish a parcel of land. So for those of you who are wondering, hey, why can't you have peace in Israel? Why can't you have, okay, you guys over here and you guys over here? Well, it's because if Muslims at one point controlled the land of Israel, then it's endless warfare until they get back all of the land. And by the way, if that were ever to happen, if Muslims were ever to get back the land of Israel, their main attention would then turn to Spain because they once controlled Spain. Right? That
yes.
would be the main focus. But those are kind of on large territories. But I have to say, I can't imagine it being too different, even with a smaller parcel of land with a mosque on it. It's weird. I can't imagine them saying, "Okay, well, the court made its decision, so now that's the end of it."
That's right. That's right. Yep. And hang on, sorry, I was just trying to see how I actually looked in the live stream because people are saying I look funny. That's all right. I got it.
Uh, well, yeah, you have a lot of hair, and especially compared to my normal guests like Sam, who are
Yeah.
completely bald.
Yep.
But I I wouldn't encourage you to pay too much attention to to the chat
Oh,
on a sensitive issue because people are gonna say all kinds of stuff yeah, as soon as
okay.
yeah, it's yeah, if people have questions, that's one thing, but if people are commenting on everything else, there are some professional distractors around afoot who
Hey.
constantly try to distract the. Let's go ahead and take a couple questions real quick. And by the way, if you see any, do you see the chat?
Yeah, I was just gonna say though, uh, my mom actually kept telling me to cut my hair short, and I got all the girls in my office to sign a petition to keep it long, and it's hanging on her fridge right now.
Some people, yeah, see, some people like long hair, like Conan, right? So, but this goes back a little while ago to when we were talking about Slumdog Millionaire. Charlie said, "What is Slumdog Millionaire?" Charlie, that was a film that won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. The movie is phenomenal. It was masterfully done. It's horribly, horribly depressing. You're looking at some young people who are in a terrible, terrible situation, and they spend their lives, and finally, eventually, it works out well for one of them. He wins. He wins. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? So really brilliantly done. So if you just think about the general plot of the movie, basically some young man uh, ends up on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the Indian version, and he's getting these questions, and they're becoming increasingly difficult questions. But he knows the answers, but the reasons he knows the answers are are because of these horrible events in his life. And so he answers a question, and then it's a flashback, right? It's a flashback to some horrible instance on how he knew this stuff. And so brilliantly done movie. Really, really, really sad, depressing movie for people
Oh, yeah.
who are going to be affected by really messed up stuff happening. All right. We'll go ahead and pull up some questions now, and then we can, for people who have questions about the issue and stuff like that. Guys, be nice. Be nice.
Hey,
This is
don't
a
worry.
yeah. This is a guest. This is not, and he's nice. It's not like Sam Shamoon, where Sam Shamoon is always a jerk to everyone. So I can't get mad if people are a jerk to him. Um,
Yeah.
Truth Exclusive said Babri. So this was going back, but this sounds like what we acknowledged. She said Babri Masjid was well organized event to destroy the mosque by Hindu extremist organizations. I don't think we denied that this was. I mean, obviously the people who did it had to plan it, and so yeah. So Truth Exclusive. Yes, we agree that
That's right.
Hindus attacked the mosque and destroyed it. So, what are you trying to make out of that? And
Um,
no, I'm not saying you. I'm saying, and we're not saying that's right or that's a good idea. We're saying Hindus did it. We have an idea of why they did it, and then it ended up in court, and now it's been ruled that the Muslims destroy. I mean, that the Muslims built over a temple, and so the court said we're gonna give people different pieces of land, and the Hindus can build something here, and Muslims can build over here. So that's the situation.
yeah.
Um, yep. Feel free to bring up any comment you see.
All right, sure. I'm just looking at the chat here. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
This is
Like,
also
what?
this is all this is also Truth Exclusive. So the same guy. I don't know who he's responding to. He says this guy in blue. So I'm in purple. So you must be the guy in blue. This guy in blue needs to be more sincere in admitting that there are Hindu extremists as well. Do you deny
There
that
are.
there? Yeah. Do you deny?
No, I
Yeah. So I don't know what this guy's responding to.
like. Do you remember your video about Christian persecution in India? I left a comment saying yes, there is definitely persecution of Christians by Hindu extremists in India. So I don't know what you guys are saying. I'm denying. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I think some people just they imagine what someone's going to say, and they don't actually respond to what the person's actually said. So
Yeah.
guys, what what are your thoughts on this? Because this is it's not a situation where you can say Muslims are just clearly wrong, right? Because you can say, well, yeah, but 5 centuries ago they built a mosque on a piece of land that had at that time belonged to Hindus. Therefore, they need to get it back. That's not an
Oh,
airtight case, right? Because notice, you can say right here, 500 years ago,
oh,
people took stuff from Native Americans, or hundreds of years ago, this group took something from that group. So it's kind of it's not as clear cut as a lot of other issues. Like if 2 weeks ago, Muslims had run over and took someone's land, then you can say, hey, you have to give that back. But you're talking about something that's centuries ago. So I'm interested in what you guys are thinking about all this.
all right. Oh, also, AP is in the chat. This Christian-Hindu alliance proves that the holy Islamic belief that all disbelievers are one and the same. Alhamdulillah. Hi, AP.
The um all right, let's see. So what do you guys all right, now notice we have demonic terror who says the Hindus were there first.
They were. That's
Yeah,
right.
that's true. But notice that is not the only question, right? I mean, if you're talking about the United States, the Native Americans were here before the Europeans came, and before this particular Native American tribe was here, a different Native American tribe was here that got conquered, and before that, a different Native American tribe was there. So you can't just say this group had it before yours, and therefore it's theirs. But at the same time, there are situations where you say that no, you took someone's
Yeah.
stuff and now you have to give it back. And so the point is, um, you can see where the Hindus are coming from, and you can see where the Muslims are coming from. To Hindus, this is one of their most sacred sites. Muslims built a mosque on it, and they could have built their mosque anywhere. They chose that spot. Um, it's not a particularly special place to Muslims, so why can't you guys go build somewhere else? And yet Muslims have this doctrine of if they've driven you out of some place, you have to go and fight until you take it back. And so, kind of a messed up situation. So, um, yeah, that's why I'm interested in seeing the makeup
Oh,
here.
oh yeah, and there are certain cases where there were like yeah, where pe other people were there first. Like if you're aware of how India, like the Indo-European speakers, they came when there was already the Indus Valley civilization, and they it's unclear whether it was destroyed by the Indo-European speakers or if it had already died out. But the point is, like they are foreign. They came in and they sort of took over the country, and um, but when it comes to Islam, that's well, it's different because their goal is always like conquer and be superior and wipe out the unbelievers. Um, that's that's I had a point. It just sort of
No,
fell off my.
no, you're make that by itself actually makes an important point that um, in history, various groups have conquered other groups and taken land from different groups and so on. With Hagia Sophia, it's not like the people who just converted it into a mosque, just ran out and took that land. It was under Muslim control for many, many centuries. So if you want to say no, it actually belongs to Christians because it was taken from Christians, in the 1400s, it's kind of hard to go to. It's kind of hard to figure out what the rules are for saying, hey, this was taken back then. But something you just pointed out, that it's built into the ideology of Islam to continue expanding and growing and taking stuff, especially people's places of worship. So it's kind of in a different category, right? It's kind of in a different category where you have to be thinking, wait a minute, this ideology I can't give an inch to. I just can't give an inch because it's never enough. As soon as they have one thing, they want to expand some more, and as soon as they have that, they want to expand some more, and as soon as so you have to just put your foot down somewhere and say no, I'm not budging. I'm not budging on this issue. So that's kind of in a different category than simple
Oh
simply
yeah,
looking back at history.
Yeah, like even recently, look at Sudan today and look at Nigeria. The exact same thing happening right now.
Um,
Yeah.
Actually, here are a couple questions.
Okay.
Do they go to worship? What is their routine? So, for people who don't
Uh,
know anything about Hinduism, and I could say yes because my landlord in the Bronx was Hindu, and they would do lots of dancing. They would do lots of dances for worship. I don't know if that's a particular group
oh yeah.
or not, but
No.
why don't you tell people what Hindu worship is like? So we'll go a little off topic, but we'll try to keep it on. We'll try to keep it. We'll try to keep
Oh yeah.
coming back to the issue, but
Well, yeah, Hindu worship is a lot more with Abrahamic religion like Christianity. It's very opposed to like art and uh, drawing or expressing God. But Hinduism is very, I would say, a lot more colorful. Like you get to you can go to the temple and dancing. I think dancing and singing are like part and parcel of Hindu worship. The Samaveda, which is one of the four Vedas, and these are the core scriptures. These are the first scriptures we have in Hinduism, and this is a collection of songs, and this is what the Hindu genre of music called bhajans are based on, uh, which are devotional songs. They're performed. They're sometimes performed with dance, depending on the song. It's a lot more. It's a lot more artistic, I would say, than the church or mosque worship for sure. Yeah, dancing, singing, art. It's yeah. As for Hindu worship, you can do it at home if you like. A lot of people only go to temples on special occasions. It's, I mean, you're asking me to explain Hindu worship, and I'm like trying to cover like the main differences.
mm.
So yeah, am I making sense or?
Yeah. So what would like? So do you celebrate like Diwali?
I do,
So what
yes.
would what would you do for Diwali or for some other particular holiday?
Well, I'd get together with my family. We light the diyas. We listen to devotional music together. Sometimes sing music together. And one of the days during Diwali, we will go to the temple. Yes, and take part in the congregation there. Yes.
Um, let's see.
Yeah.
Here, Charlie says Christian missionaries. He might be a troll here. He says
Yeah.
Christian missionaries Congress convert poor Hindus by brainwashing them. So
Yes, we
so
heard that during your Christian persecution video too. The thing is, I don't know a whole lot about that because I'm not in India and I haven't been to India since my grandpa died when I was 10 years old. So no idea what to say about that. Yeah.
yeah, I've explained my video. Yeah, I've explained my views in a video. It's now notice even when we're talking about the mosque, I try to see things from other people's perspective, right? Like I'll try to okay, what would Muslims be thinking about their mosque being demolished? And even if you say, hey, it was built over a Hindu temple, what are they still thinking about that? Are they thinking, come on, it was centuries ago. It's been ours for centuries. You can't just give back everything that was other people's stuff centuries ago. You're not gonna be able to do it. Although I think it would be interesting if Muslims claimed that. If Muslims ever claimed, no, you have to give back stuff that belonged to other people at some point, there goes the entire Muslim world because almost everything was taken. So I try to see things from other people's perspectives, and with India, I think I pointed this out in my video is I get why if you look at Islam says these people are unbelievers, therefore we have to go conquer them and convert them or kill them and take over their land because we have to take over the entire world. And right now, India is one of the dividing lines between the Muslim world and the non-Muslim world. So we have to keep pushing back. Guys, you can go around the world and look on the dividing lines, and that's where you see fighting. If you go to Nigeria is a dividing line, right? You go to the north, it's Muslim. You go to the south, it's Christian. And so, what do you see there? Constant fighting and terror. You go to India, that's one of the dividing lines. And Islam is always trying to push the line further and further back. So in Islam, they've been commanded to subjugate all these people. I mean, not to subjugate all these people, to convert them or kill them. And then Christians look at this and say, wait a minute, these people need Jesus. Look at this. They've got all these gods. They need Jesus. We need to go in there and bring the gospel and share the gospel with them. If you're that's the perspective of a Christian. So Muslims want to conquer, Christians want to share the gospel with them. And if you're a Hindu, from a Hindu perspective, it's, guys, you guys have the entire rest of the world. We have this one spot. And you guys are focused on coming here. We got one little spot. And then you guys keep coming after us. Hindus and Christians. Everyone's coming for our one little spot. It's kind of similar to Israel in that sense, right? That everyone wants that spot.
Yes, and I'm glad. Thank you for acknowledging that in your video about India. I appreciate that. Thank you, David.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, obviously, I'm a Christian. I believe the entire world needs to hear the gospel and so on. But I get it. I can see that. If I were a Hindu and all the Muslims have dozens of countries and Christians make up dozens of countries and stuff, and they want to keep coming after India. I understand why that would be a sore spot.
That's right. Yeah, and that's one thing. That I think I did actually mention it to you, that hey, if you ever get sick of dealing with this horrible ideology that doesn't have any redeeming qualities at all, like scientifically, historically, morally, ethically, there's just nothing there, right? Well, if you want something that doesn't feel like an insult to your intelligence to respond to, I think you might find it in answering Hinduism, just because more than one of the best Christian apologists of all time have said, hey, this is, like, if you look at things theologically, Hinduism is the runner-up to Christianity. C.S. Lewis said that, and if you've read Ravi Zacharias' series, Great Conversations, where he has Jesus meet other historical and religious figures, there's one where he meets Krishna, and it's in this. This is the only place in the whole series where he actually praises the character that he's juxtaposed with, and so what I'm thinking,
that series is kind of like Muhammad's Boom Boom Room.
Yeah, except
without the explosion.
That's right. The one about Muhammad, Prince and the Prophet, I haven't been able to find that one anywhere online, but I did read it in a bookstore once. Like, it was a bookstore and a Starbucks, so I took it off the shelf, sat at the Starbucks, read it, and put it back. It is like Muhammad's Boom Boom Room, except not comedic, and Jesus is portrayed positively.
No, we don't hear nearly as much about Hinduism in the West, and it seems that you have certain positions that are inherently, they proselytize, right? It's built into the system. Hey, this isn't just for you. You have to go around the world and convert people. And so Christianity is like that. Islam is like that. The modern, more aggressive form of atheism is like that, right? Atheists are not going to stop. They're not all atheists. They're atheists who, I don't really care what people believe as long as they stay out of my face. There are atheists who like that. But then there are other atheists. No, religion is going to destroy science. It's going to destroy the world. It's going to kill. It's going to get everyone killed. That's why we have to go and we have to smash religion wherever it's found. So you have atheists like that, and so, but those are kind of the three: Christianity, Islam, and atheism that are kind of always coming for you. And you have groups like, Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses that are kind of smaller groups. But people tend to study what's coming at them, right? Or what's coming after their children, or what's trying to convert them and stuff. That's when people might go and study something. Whereas Hinduism just isn't usually like that. They're not Hindus. Right. Hindus usually aren't going out and trying to convert people. But I'm guessing, since everyone's trying to come and convert Hindus, I'm guessing there's like Hindu apologetics.
Yes, and indeed, during the British era, about the same time as the Ahmadi movement emerged, and there was a Hindu renaissance as well called the Arya Samaj, and this was sort of branch or sect or understanding of Hinduism, how you want to put it, actually has a concept of proselytization built into it. But other than that, no, Hinduism is a very live and let live religion.
Hmm.
That's right.
But so Hindu apologetic. If someone, so I understand there's been debates between Hindus and Muslims and so on.
Uh,
I'm assuming there's been debates between Hindus and Christians as well. So
yeah.
what does Hindu apologetics? We're not going to argue over it or anything. I'm just trying to get my mind around it because I have no familiarity with it. But what would Hindu apologetics kind of look like? Would it be historical or philosophical or?
Yeah. Well, for one, the thing I noticed when as I was like a part of your and AP's and the other channels communities is that when I see Hinduism brought up, it's almost always something they almost always get something wrong. Like it would be um it would be defending Hinduism from the common attacks. Like it promotes the burning of widows when their husbands die, which is uh, something I think I could defend just based on what the facts are. Like I debate anyone on that topic because I know what the scripture says, I know what the commentaries say, and yeah, I could defend that one. And the other common attacks leveled against it, like it promotes the it mandates a caste system where your caste is immutably assigned at birth, and it dictates how you are to be treated and not just what your duty is in life. That's yeah. So Hindu
What's
apology.
what's by the way, what are your thoughts on that issue? Because that's some pretty standard stuff that we hear about Hinduism. So
For the caste system or
yeah,
for widow.
for the caste
Uh,
system.
well, for me, there is only one place in the Rig Veda which is the oldest scripture of Hinduism, where the caste system could be thought of as being codified. It's Book 10, hymn number 90, where it said that the Brahmins were created out of the head of the god Purusha, and the Kshatriya, the warriors, were made out of his arms. And I forget the rest. The lowest caste was formed out of his feet. That's something I actually the early Indologist Max Muller, he actually said that he believes that the addition that was a later addition based on linguistic evidence and the meter of the verse, and also that the during the era when Christian missionaries were in India uh, during the British era, and when all the other East India companies like the Dutch, the Portuguese, the Danish were all there, is that um, the texts that were blamed for promoting the caste system and the caste oppression are in fact the Dharma Shastras, which are a later series of texts that are specifically considered not to be divine revelation, but an embellishment on it by human hands for a certain time and place. And these works aren't they're not authoritative according to Hinduism itself, though they can be used as a system of law, and they have been, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Here's a good question. This is actually the kind of question I'm interested in. How do Hindus generally feel about the conflict between the Israelis and Palestinians, specifically regarding Jerusalem? So I don't know if there's any sort of standard position, but it's basically, yeah, the positions, the views that we're familiar with in the United States. They tend to fall a lot of times along political party lines and things like that, or sort of broad picture, where do you fall on the political spectrum, and that sort of guides your views. But how do people in India look over at the conflict in the Middle East, or is it even an issue?
Well, the first thing I want to address is you may be aware of Gandhi's quote on this issue, which is, "Oh, Palestine belongs to the Arabs in the same sense that France belongs to the French." Are you aware of that quote?
No, I've heard some other
Okay,
interesting quotes by Gandhi on this.
yeah, but basically, well, he was against the partition. He was trying to prevent the partition of India and Pakistan. So he was opposed to creating countries for religious groups in the first place. And also, he was trying to promote Hindu-Muslim unity, which is why he would take their side. Yeah.
Hmm. Um, so that would be the general perspective in India.
No, no, most, I think, I don't want to say what the general perspective is in India because I don't know, but I think um, Gandhi is just wrong and people shouldn't listen to him. That's
Hmm.
yeah. What I think is, and there is a lot of pro-Israel sentiment among the Hindus in India as well. So I would assume at least that they would take the Israeli side on all of it.
Yeah, I've seen some comments on that. I've seen some comments on that in the chat. So uh,
Yes, that's right. The
go.
I did want to address Gandhi's quote though, because I imagine that's something that would be brought up
Mhm.
later in the comments, maybe.
Yeah, Gandhi said something on everyone's side, so everyone can kind of appeal to Gandhi for their case.
That's
Um, Here's one. He says the issue isn't that. So this is back on topic. He said the issue isn't that Hindus were there first, but that they destroyed the holiest shrines amongst other tens of thousands, and we never conceded it.
uh,
So, so,
I don't.
so here, yeah, here the claim is that because I was putting it in light of, well, you can't just say so and so took it centuries ago and therefore you have to give it back because I mean a very large part of the world has been taken over by other people in the last 500 years, and so you need something more to say than, well, it was taken 5 centuries ago. And so the point here is the issue isn't that Hindus were there first, but that was our holy site. We never conceded it. They just took it by force. And so by the same rules, if we ever get to a point where we could take it by force, then why wouldn't we take it by force back? Those are the I guess those are the rules laid down by the Muslims who took it. Hey, if you can take someone's spot, then go ahead and take it. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying in my video about Hagia Sophia. It's okay. You had that land. Do you have the power to turn it back into a mosque? Of course you can. But don't come complaining to me. Don't come complaining to me. Next time someone does something that offends your religion, you guys are making it so that you guys, Muslims in Turkey, are publicly proclaiming that they do not care about hurting anyone's feelings about their religion. Well, great. And so I think the point here could be, well, if Muslims believe that you can go level someone's shrine or temple and build over it, then the same would apply, and therefore they just don't get to complain here. But yeah, so it's, I guess the view here is it was always a Hindu site that was taken temporarily by Muslims, and now the Muslims don't have it anymore. They've been driven off it. So
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, hey, but according to most, well, yeah, I agree. If we can, yeah. But the thing is with Islam, they do believe that they have the right to that land because it's their conquered territory. It's Dar al Islam or whatever they call it, not Dar al Harb anymore.
mhm.
Yeah. But with Hinduism, there's no such concept of like, oh, um, I would say with Hindus, there is the concept of, okay, India is our one country that we have, and Christians and Muslims have the rest of the world. But within Hinduism, there is no concept of like we were here first, and or like we get to have this because we're the superior group. Whereas with Islam, that's like the core theology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Jinx Mim here says, Rama was only born on that one spot. You can't replace it. They want a mosque there for the same reason, symbolic conquest
Yeah.
of
Same with that.
symbolic conquest of irreplaceable land. And so, guys, if you haven't been following this closely, it's basically I'm pointing out I pointed out multiple times that you can't always just say, hey, that belonged to us 5 centuries ago, and therefore you have to give us back. The world is changed a lot, and so you need something more. But people have been providing various differences between, this European group conquering that European group and now living in that area of Europe, and it wouldn't make much sense to give it back to the original conquered group or something like that. So Rama was only born in that one spot, but the reason that's built into Islam to take a place like that is we know you can't replace that spot in your religion. We know that's the only spot where you
Yeah,
believe
that's
that happened, and therefore we have to have it as a sort of constant reminder of our superiority over you. And if you somehow tear it down and the courts rule that you get it back, well, that's an insult to our superiority. You're denying our superiority. And so what tying this together with some things we talked about earlier, that might be a reason, right? With when you have an ideology like this where these things, it's not simply a mosque. If it was simply a mosque, you could build a mosque, a mile away or something like that, right? So it's not just that it's a mosque, this is a symbol of our superiority to you. It's our symbol of our superiority.
that's right.
And
Same with
so,
that.
yeah,
Ground
I'm not a fan of symbols of superiority.
Nope. It's the same as that Ground Zero mosque with 9/11. It's the same, like, conquest. That's what it is. Like, we want to take over. We want to show you that we're superior and we're taking over this spot of yours, either because we demolished it or it's because it's so significant to you and now it's ours. It's yeah, it's yeah. That's mm,
Here's one. We'll probably take a couple more questions and then close it out. We basically wanted to again. I got multiple requests, and now and I know that most people in the West aren't familiar with the situation of the Babri Mosque, so we wanted to cover give people an outline of what the situation is there. A couple questions. Samar Al-Bakor says, how can we distinguish the case in India with the mosque to that one in Turkey with Hagia Sophia? I can think of a couple differences, but what are your thoughts on that? So what's the difference between these two scenarios?
well, uh, the difference is, I guess, the historical difference or the outcome, because like the outcome, I guess, is we have a happy ending here, and you guys need to, you guys lost your uh, place of worship. Historically, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about the history of the Byzantine Empire under Islamic conquest, but with India, it was just, oh, there are these infidels. Here's this place of worship. We'll level it and put our superior place of worship on top of it. I'm assuming with the Hagia Sophia, it wasn't demolished. It was just turned into a mosque. That's the only difference I'm aware of. Am I? Is that?
Yeah,
Was that?
I think the question is about in the kind of the moral grounds on which you're doing something. So I think it's a question of like, well, if you're a Christian and you say that Muslims can't convert that into a mosque because it was a church, how can you say that Hindus can crush this mosque or something like that? So you do the similarities are that was a very, very important holy site to Christians, but
Yeah.
it wasn't. It's not what you would call irreplaceable, right? It was a church that they built that church there because that was, that had become the capital,
Oh, oh, I see,
the
I see.
capital city. And so that place was not irreplaceable to Christians. Christians could and did build, churches in other places. Whereas that was a very special site, but that was a very special site to Hindus. But with that said, they were both very dear places because this is a Christian church going back before Hagia Sophia was built. There it was a church before that. So for a thousand years, this is a very important place to Christians, and Muslims conquer it and take it over. And so those are the similarities. The differences are, in Turkey it became a secular place and a museum. But you look, and Turkey is predominantly Muslim, right? Turkey is predominantly Muslim, and so I'm not gonna flip out and run through the streets and say, hey, you're making this place a mosque. The only point I derive is you could have kept that as a museum,
Yeah.
which is I think that's the best you can do. If Christians are saying no, that's our spot, and Muslims are saying no, that's our spot, and it was built by Christians, it was conquered by Muslims. The population is predominantly Muslim, and hey, if you give it back to the Christians, it's going to be endless bloodshed over this thing. They're going to be terrorist attacks. If you give it to the Muslims, it's they're going to be up. The Christians are going to be upset. Therefore, we'll just make it a museum, and everyone can come in. Everyone can come in, and so that seemed like the best you could do with that situation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is a Muslim area. It is a Muslim area, and so when Muslims say, nope, we're actually just going to turn this into a mosque, I say you have the power to do that. You have the ability to do that. But notice what you just did. You had a place that was as inoffensive as you could make it, and you decided, nope, we're going to slap the Christians in the face with this one. My only point that I drew out of all that is, don't come complaining to me when someone hurts
Yeah,
your feelings about your religion.
that's right.
Yeah, and then the difference with the mosque in India is, I'm not sure what the makeup there. What's the makeup there? Is that a predominantly Hindu area, or
I believe it's pretty much the same as the whole country, which is a predominantly Hindu, significant Muslim majority, and then a bunch of the other minorities like Christians, Sikhs, and whatnot. Um, However, historically, that site has been important for Muslims because it is the mosque founded by the founder of the Mughal Empire. Yeah, yeah,
um, here's yeah. So there are some parallels and there are some
but
differences. So
but the
that
difference
oh, good.
is with the temple in India is that it's actually believed to be religiously significant to Hindus because we believe that one of our gods was actually born there. Whereas with the Hagia Sophia, it's just it was a church that was built, but it wasn't where Jesus was. It wasn't where he taught or
Mhm.
preached or where. But the thing is, it's still that doesn't mean it's right to to conquer it and turn it into a mosque.
Yeah. Here's what's interesting. If I were to actually pick a place that's a parallel, I would not pick Hagia Sophia as the parallel place.
Yeah,
It's more like, in my mind, it's more like the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, where
yeah.
at one point Muslims conquer the area and they build a mosque there, but later on, the more powerful group is not Muslims anymore, right? In Israel, it's predominantly Jewish now, and in that area of India, it's predominantly Hindu, and yet you have this place that is built upon the holy site of the dominant group, and the dominant group is for some reason not allowed to take that spot back. They're supposed to exhibit tolerance and say, well, you took that from us years ago when you were in power. We're in power now, but we're not going to do it because we don't want to upset you here. So that's the parallel. That's the actual parallel I would draw.
Mm. Yep, that's right. That's accurate. Yep.
All right, one more question. We'll wrap up. John Beaver says if Hindus receive the site back, which that's already been decided in court that they get the
Yeah.
site back. Yeah. So
Yep.
if Hindus receive their site back, do you think there will be a civil war? I don't think there's going to be a civil war, but
No.
it's basically once a Hindu. I'm just going to expand upon his question a bit
All right.
to get your perspective. But once Hindus build another temple there and there's a temple there, what problems do you see either locally or across the country, or do you think there won't really be any?
Well, it'll be the same problems we always see when something happens to upset the Muslim community, which is, um, well, I mean, which is there's going to be turmoil. There's going to be there might be a terrorist attack. Maybe that's it. I don't think there's going to be a civil war. There might be retaliation against Hindus in Pakistan and Bangladesh.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point because we've seen that is also, and to be clear, ladies and gentlemen, we're not talking about all Muslims here. We understand there's different, but there are people in the Muslim community who will randomly attack people.
Yep.
Like so when Terry Jones, a guy in Florida, announced that he was having a burn the Quran day, there were people killed in Afghanistan over that. Or when cartoons are made about Muhammad, people will be killed in completely different parts of the world. It's like, hey, let's go out and kill any random unbeliever. And so,
Yeah, like the Sri Lanka attack against Christians, that was actually done in retaliation for the Christchurch shooting, if you remember that. That was it's like we'll take it out on innocent people who are in the same group as you because that's what our religion teaches, I guess.
mhm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. We hope you. There's obviously more detail you could go in, but we hope we got everyone up to speed on a kind of dispute that you might not hear about much in the West. Thanks to Hindu historian for joining us and taking us through that. Any final thoughts or words?
Um. Yeah. Hopefully, next time I'll be a little more confident at the beginning. But there we go.
You're fine. No, no.
Yeah.
I think most people are fine. There are people who pick about anything, and again, there are professional distractors, and
Yeah.
I actually posted one or two, but you were getting compliments for your hair as well. So just so
Yeah.
you know.
Well. Yeah. No, I was just really nervous at the beginning. I've never gone live on YouTube before, so yeah. But all
Good.
right, cool. Thanks for having me on, David. I'm glad I got to talk to you, and I'm glad I got to be live on your channel. Man, explain some stuff about Hinduism
Mhm.
for once. Yeah.
All right. Well,
Oh,
no. Oh, go ahead.
oh, and I hope we get to go live again soon over a different topic, maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, I mean, it kind of sucks, but I do not think we've heard the end of
Yeah.
Islam in India. So
Yeah.
I'm sure we will have some more stuff to discuss here in the future. All right, thanks everyone for joining us. I'm not sure when I'll be going live again, but I'll definitely be cranking out videos. Catch you all soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, David.